One of the most insane serial killers I have ever learned about, I still to this day believe didn't work alone. So you guys know Jack the Ripper, right? Well, this guy not only outlasted and outdid him, but he put New York in one of the biggest states of fear and taunted investigators for years. Before we get into who he is and why I don't think he acted alone, let's talk about what he did. The first kill he ever made was stabbing 2 young girls on Christmas Eve of 1975. At this time, New York was an absolute shambles. People were being killed and assaulted all the time. Robberies were happening, bodies were being found, and the police really couldn't keep up with everything, so whenever this happened, it wasn't like a big news headliner. Well, a few months later, 2 girls were shot sitting in their car. Both of them ended up surviving, but it happened so fast that they didn't have any information on the suspect. Just some .44 caliber bullets left on scene. Well, the next attack occurred whenever this couple was sitting in a car. They reported that the whole car felt like it exploded, and the girl looked over and saw a bullet wound in the guy's head. Because of the bullets used, the police were part 2 to why I don't think the son of Sam worked alone. Well, it was rumored that there was a cult working in New York City that was an offshoot of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. They referred to themselves as the Children and ended up in Yonkers. Well, when Maury was doing his investigating, he was let know by several people that their rituals were done in Untermeyer Park, an estate that used to be absolutely beautiful. But as you can see from the pictures, there's now an abandoned pump house. And when investigating this, trigger warning, they found blood on the walls and blood on the ceiling, in symbolic writing. Not only this, but dead animals were everywhere, including specifically dogs. So then it was time to look back at David's letters, in which he made cultural references to Beelzebub, which is the demon known as Lord of the Flies, and Brat, which is a small devil. He also ended his letter as From the Gutters, which was quite literally the nickname for the abandoned pump house. And when holding how he signed his name at the end of the letters to the mirror, you can find the words Sam and Carr and Burke in it. So where were the actual sons of Sam, and why hadn't they been questioned? Part 3 to why I don't think the son of Sam worked alone. Well, after Maury had taken investigation into his own hand and was seeing all these connections, he went to the police with it. And he was essentially just told to shut it down. That they had their man behind bars, there's no way other people worked with him, even though there was clear indications that he was working with a cult, and none of the eyewitness sketches even looked like him. So the last thing to do would be able to tie the sons of Sam to the actual case. So John, Michael, and Wheat Carr were all the kids of Sam, Michael and John specifically being the sons. After talking to neighbors, there were several stories about Sam beating them. Their father Sam struggled with alcoholism, and this was all included in the letter that David wrote. So Maury's like, okay, let's go do investigating in the place that they were from, Minot, North Dakota. And when they got to their hometown, they were told by everyone that they were legitimately cult leaders. There was accounts of them sacrificing dogs, drinking blood, all of the work. So Maury was like, okay, we need to actually get a hold of these guys. Maybe they'll be open to talking about it, but soon after that, it was reported that they both mysteriously died.
Am I wrong for not attending my daughter's gender reveal for her lizard? This is literally really stupid, but she's really upset about it. So my 48 daughter, 23, has a blue-tongued skink who she heavily adores. She jokingly refers to it as her daughter. I've found it weird, but she says it's because it's the closest thing she'd have to a child, and she feels a strong emotional bond similar to a child. She has decided to remain child-free for multiple reasons, and I have been very supportive of this decision. Well, she recently took her skink to the vet for a checkup, and she was excited to find out her skink's gender. Afterwards, I got a text asking if I'd come to her gender reveal party she was having. She explained it was a small get-together with cake and food for her friends she hasn't seen in a while, with the gender reveal being mostly a joke, and a way to make fun of real gender reveals. Well, I didn't come. I didn't see a point. It's just a lizard and I'm a busy person. She later called me and expressed she was kind of sad I didn't come because it'd been a while since I've seen her, but she understood I was busy. I told her she couldn't actually expect me to come to a gender reveal for a lizard. She said that it wasn't a real gender reveal, that it was more of a joke and it was really just a small...
Let's get to know each other a little bit. My name's Lindsay and I love food. I love eating it. I love cooking it. I pretty much love everything about it. My birthday is February 10th, 1987, making me 34, almost 35 years old and an Aquarius. This mostly just explains why I hate authority and would rather die than be like anybody else. Another thing you may not know about me is that most of the recipes you see me make, this is actually my first time making them. I used to get a lot of anxiety when it came to experimenting in the kitchen, but over the years, I have kind of fallen in love with the whole creative process behind it. Watching the Food Network for the past 20-something years has really helped me with the process of creating a lot of these dishes. And when it comes to flavor, I'm always thinking about salt, acid, sweetness, bitterness, fattiness. I think about textures like crunchy, soft, chewy. And of course, I'm always trying to combine those flavors and textures to create something not just delicious, but craveable. You can find my first attempt recipe, as all of them are, for these Italian sausage meatballs and butternut squash brown butter sauce on my YouTube channel, link in bio.
Till this day, my single dad can barely make oatmeal, and growing up, whenever my grandparents would leave for the Philippines, it was basically a war zone in the kitchen, so I eventually took it upon myself to eat something other than cereal for dinner. Spam musubi was the first dish I ever made when I was about 12 years old. I actually burned the spam on a non-stick pan and tried to use steel wool to scrub it off, then googled it and realized I just made a cancerous mistake. Lesson learned, don't use that metal wire sponge on your pans or your rice cooker. In hindsight, maybe we should have just gotten McDonald's.
Creepy homeless man, let's not meet again. I suddenly realized that I couldn't make it to my car before he would make it to me. So I stopped dead in my tracks underneath the streetlight on the side of the building. I always walked with my keys in my hand so I would never be stuck digging around for them at a time like this. And I also had a keychain of mace. Get him! At this point, this guy was a foot away from me, aggressively asking me for money and telling me he needed to get home. I told him I have no money and I can't help you. He moved closer until he was inches away from me. I picked up my mace, and in that moment, the streetlight shone on it perfectly, so this creep saw it and he backed away. As she should. I guess the sight of my mace spooked him. He quickly walked past me, and I sprinted to my car and I sped away. I called the police and asked them to review the surveillance. They told me the cameras didn't work and they hadn't for a long time, so there was no way he would be caught. This constantly kept me on edge, so much that I moved out of the city a few months later.
My mom made this dish for my school lunch, and the people who sat around me looked and pointed at the food and asked me why it looked like that. They asked to smell it and said it smelled weird and was something they would never eat. Growing up, I was made fun of for the way my school lunches looked or smelled, and there were so many days where I wish I could just have a sandwich or a Lunchables. I was bullied into being ashamed of my culture's food and essentially my Asian American heritage. What's funny is that as I get older, the more unique my food is, the more people want to try it and seem to enjoy it.